Paige Johnson, Senior Director of Cloud Alliances at Harness. Today I'm here at Amazon Studios with James from AWS to talk about how AI is impacting DevOps in the cloud. James, so great to see you today.
Yeah, nice seeing you too, Paige.
Yeah, would love to have you describe your role for the audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is James Bland. I'm the Global Tech Lead for DevOps here at AWS. I work with our many different customers to try to understand their challenges, and then what I do is I take their challenges, I work with our different service teams and our different partners to help solve those challenges for our customers.
Great, thank you. You've been such a great partner, James, and you're such a thought leader in this space. I would love to get your insight into the trends that you see in AI overall for the next year, 3 years, 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the next year, I see a huge changes, right? So right now it requires an expert operator to kind of like use AI and to interact with ML. I think within those next years, some of those challenges will go away, like what like with prompt engineering and things like that. We'll get better at it. And so people will be able to interact with it a little bit easier without having to be an expert at ML or AI for that matter. In the next 3 to 5 years, where I see the changes is it'll expand even from that, right? So what we'll do is we'll start seeing more of AI solving bigger problems and more end-to-end like solutions. So not only just specific problems that it's fixing for, like, let's say if we're talking about like DevOps in particular, like like automated testing, it'll actually solve an end-to-end, be able to actually develop and deploy that application for you automatically, right? And then in 10 years, hopefully we see something more like akin to what like Iron Man with vision, right? Where he's able to interact with an AI system that can also interact back, but then also affect things in kind of like the physical world. But I mean, that's maybe a little bit far-fetched for 10 years, and maybe that's even further out.
That's pretty cool considering we're here at Amazon Studios making that reference, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I know you're in the field interacting with customers on a daily basis, or joint customers, right? Who are leveraging Harness. Would love to hear from you. What are you hearing as their top concerns and challenges as it pertains to AI?
Yeah, as it pertains to AI, I'm finding that customers are still very challenged with just interacting with like the DevOps in general, right? We see a huge evolution in kind of like the technology and what's available out there. And a lot of customers are still primarily like on premises, right? Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the on-premises environment, it's a well-known system for them, right? Like there's silos within organizations where they have development, they have QA testing, they have release engineering, and even operations teams that can actually help them get applications out of production. But also that creates a lot of friction within organizations, right? In terms of speed and innovation. And so the shift that we're seeing now is that people want to leverage AI to kind of help them within those, and also help shift left a lot of those responsibilities into like lower level parts of or into the engineering side of the organization.
I see. So what are some of the main concerns with those on-prem customers? Is it mainly security? And what are you hearing about security in general as it relates to embracing AI and the cloud?
Yeah, so security is definitely a main concern, right? At AWS, we call it security is job zero, right? So security is concern for everybody, regardless of whatever your role is. But yes, customers are ultimately very challenged with this, because as we see this technology shifting to going from on-premises to like cloud, as an example, the security models change, right? Because now no longer is just security like inside your, like walled garden within your organization. Now security is something that you have to think about, like how people access it from different, disparate locations, things like that. And so definitely, yeah, security is definitely top of mind when it comes to challenges.
For sure. So I understand, the concerns about basic security moving from on-prem to the cloud. Now layer on AI. What are some of the additional things that you're hearing as it relates to AI and DevOps and security?
DevOps and security. Actually, some good things, right? Because what we're seeing is because customers are ultimately challenged with this, right? They don't understand like how to apply best practices or how to apply some of the least privileges things that we recommend here at AWS. This is where AI kind of helps out a lot because then AI can take and it can train off of like what other customers have done, even what AWS has done internally in Amazon, where we've built like kind of like this knowledge base, and we're basically able to use AI to kind of share this out into the world, right? And so AI can automatically generate like security policies, can generate different things for you. I mean, we're talking future here, right? We're not talking about what's available today.
Right.
Some of the pieces are starting to come available today, but hopefully, this is what I see like kind of the vision for the future.
Great. So curious from your point of view, where do you see the biggest synergies between AWS and a modern software delivery platform like Harness?
Actually, I love that question. So with what I'm very interesting, or I find very interesting what Harness is actually doing, like from an end-to-end perspective, where you're providing like the architecture, build, test, deploy, and operate like that full end-to-end DevOps lifecycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that there's a lot of synergies there in the sense where you're providing a holistic, like an end-to-end solution for a customer. So then our customers, or our joint customers, I should say, can focus on what they find important to their business and not have to worry about the low level, like stitching all these different components together, right?
Right.
Because that's one of the challenges that I find that customers have right now is they want to accelerate, they want to innovate, but they're finding it very challenging in stitching all these different components together, right? Mm-hmm. Because depending on who they talk to, they're going to get different opinions about it. Like, oh, hey, when like as you're developing, you should use branching, or you should use a mono repo style. And everybody has all these opinions, but customers are struggling. Like, what's the best opinion, right? And I think that there's a great synergy because you guys are building a full end-to-end solution platform for our customers that then allows them to deploy and release and operate on AWS. I think that in itself is probably the biggest synergy I can see.
So would you say simplification is something that Harness could offer your customers, that you were saying complexity about all these different solutions that are kind of touching on different points throughout the platform, if you will, but we offer it all. Is that something appealing to your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, simplicity, but then also, like I said, it comes back down to allowing the customer to kind of like focus on what's important to them. Mm-hmm. Like here at AWS, we always say what we want to try to do is abstract like the heavy lifting associated with running and maintaining your infrastructure. And the pipeline is one of those infrastructure pieces, right? I mean, it's for most customers, that's not their core competency, and that's not their core business, right? And so what we want to do is together, that's where we're better together, right? Is being able to offer our customers that kind of like end-to-end solution so they can focus on their core business challenges.
Exactly, and secure it, right, with guardrails.
Yes, absolutely.
Super important. So James, I'm curious, what techniques keep AI from being exploited from malicious attacks on the SLDC?
So one is start obviously with best practices, even if it's not, even just generally, like not even talking about AI, right, is always start with like least privileges, like protection of the pipeline and protection in the pipeline. So protection of the pipeline basically means that you're protecting the pipeline resources from being attacked externally, right? So people can't insert, like into the supply chain, different malicious things, right? And protection in the pipeline is as products are going through your pipeline or your application, as it's being built, basically doing checks, security checks within the pipeline itself, right? And so I would still say those still apply even when we're talking about AI ML, right? Is making sure that your pipeline is secure from a perspective that people can't make arbitrary changes to the pipeline, what tests, what applications, what source code goes into it, and then also make sure that you're also testing the application within the pipeline itself.
Are you seeing that across all customer types in terms of industries, or are there certain industries that are more sensitive?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing like certain industries are more attuned to doing security of the pipeline and in the pipeline, because obviously every industry has different regulatory compliance, right? Like, so when we talk about like FSI is probably one of the first ones that we're probably seeing that is locking things down, but it's still great advice for whatever industry that you're in. Even if you don't have regulatory compliance, I mean, security should still be top of mind.
Absolutely. I do have a question about international companies. So how is AI being leveraged in international situations where there's heavy compliance and regulation?
Yeah, and definitely it's still a challenge, right? So when we're looking at like AI for different different international organizations, compliances are like wildly different depending on where you go to, right? And so the way those organizations are going to leverage AI, or today and in the future, is they're going to basically train the AI models based on their regulatory compliance and their kind of like data needs. And that's one of the outstanding challenges today, and why it hasn't seen as wide as adoption as we'd all have loved it to, right? Is because of those compliance measures, right? People are fearful that they're going to accept an AI answer or something in code that might actually already be licensed out by another organization. And so because of that, a lot of times people are a little bit skeptical or a little bit weary about adopting AI. And so what we're doing here at AWS is we're making sure that we're training our models based on things that are open source or not licensed. And we're also training the models based on the customer's repo, right? Like, so if a customer has a code repo, it'll actually train off of there. So we know that those code samples and those code suggestions will actually be something that they're already licensed to use or has been developed within their organization already.
Okay, awesome. I would like to ask you also about cloud costs. So cloud optimization is a huge focus area for a lot of corporations right now, especially with the economy and the impact that's had right on overall spend. So I'd love to get your insight in terms of what you're hearing from your customers and how they're solving for that.
So cloud cost is definitely an interesting topic that's top of mind for all of our customers, right? So when they're looking at their different environments like dev, test, staging, and production environments. So those lower level environments are always interesting, because what we can do is you can use ML to kind of like model the developer's behavior. So you can figure out when developers are actually using those environments. So traditionally what companies used to do is they basically used to model it off of, hey, our developers work from 9 to 7 o'clock. Something like that, right? And then they would set up schedules where you can basically turn down or tear down these different environments. Where when ML and AI in general, you can basically model this off of the actual true behavior of your developers, finding out when your developers actually use this. And you might find that, hey, developers are not using this during lunch times, or maybe their hours are very different. And I could tell you from being a developer myself, my 9 to 7 was probably not a typical development time. What I would consider my flow when I actually work best is usually late at night. So my times would be more like midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. And so you can use AI and ML to model those things to basically reduce cost in terms of your environmental costs for that. Other things it can also do in terms of cost, right, is you can also model use AI to kind of model and performance optimize your production environments too, right? To make sure that you're not overspending on certain type of infrastructure or resource costs, right sizing machines, things like that. Because yes, you could have a human look at that, but what happens is now with the cloud, you're talking on an application usually spans more than just one server, right? And so like no human can really just look at like hundreds of servers out there and kind of like model to try to figure out like how to cost optimize those.
So in terms of innovation and velocity for your customers, what are you hearing that are some of the biggest challenges that are preventing them from innovating and deploying faster?
A lot of it right now is like awareness, right? A lot of times I think our customers are not aware of like the technologies and the capabilities that are out there that help them that'll help them accelerate, right? And even we're talking about the topic of like AI and ML. Like with AI, they don't realize that they don't have to learn everything right from the ground up, which is what traditionally most developers had to do, right? Like if they had to learn a stack, they had to learn it from the ground up, like, hey, figure out what stacks and things like that. Well, with AI, they could start out with coding tools that kind of like coding assistant tools that kind of help them develop those models or develop those application patterns by just prompting their code or their software with like what their intent is, what they really want to try to achieve, and then the code samples can come. So they don't actually have to go look that up, go to the documentation, go try to find that on like Stack Overflow or some some other resource.
But that's a huge help.
Oh, it is. It is. It's a huge productivity gain for we notice for our customers who are using those type of tools.
Okay, James. So switching gears a bit. What would you tell companies that are looking to develop their own developer experience organizations, and how could AI help them?
So for those companies, I would tell them this: don't try to build it for yourself from scratch, right? Start with solutions that are already out there that give you kind of the building blocks to develop your own solution. I can understand the why organizations may want to do that, right? Because you want to create your own developer experience, and there's really, there's not really something in the market that gives you that kind of like customized experience, so you want to kind of customize. But I would say that my advice would be is to start with building blocks that are already out there, that and piece those together, and you'll even find that a lot of times the glue is already out there that stitched them together as well.
So we've talked about AI in general. Now let's double click on Gen AI. What are some of the current, issues that you're seeing with Gen AI in the developer space today?
Yeah, like right now, I think the major issue that we're seeing with in that particular space is more like prompt engineering, right? So right now, so AI is not deterministic. So when depending on the prompts that you give it, you can get very wildly different answers, right? And so right now, it's that the biggest challenge is kind of like in that prompt engineering space, basically being able to provide the right prompts to the AI system, and so it can generate you a response that's based on something that you actually want, right? And that's kind of what I feel is kind of probably one of the biggest challenges out there right now in terms of the Gen AI space.
And how do you see that being solved? Is that a short-term problem, long-term?
A lot of these problems, especially when we're talking about the AI space, is a lot of it's going to be solved with data. The more and more data that we have, the more and we're able to like train these different models, and the better results that we'll get from them, right? So right now the challenge, like I talked about it earlier, where we talked about it requires an expert operator, and that's where it's at right now, right? It's like, so an expert operator is somebody who's very familiar with how to give these systems different prompts and what to ask for. Like in coding assistance right now, we do that we provide our intentions via like comments. So we put comments in the system, and then based on those comments, it'll help us generate code, and then between the code and the comments will help us generate even more code and get more things out of there. But yes, like I said, it's more data, more things that we can actually train the system with, the better responses we'll get.
What are you hearing that the customers are the most excited about as it pertains to Gen AI and how they want to use it?
Right. Yeah. So in terms of Gen AI, what they're most excited about is how they're able to do a lot of the heavy lifting that we considered like toil in the past, and using Gen AI for things. And let me give you an example. So when I'm creating a DevOps pipeline, there's a lot of configuration that goes into that, right? And a lot of little nuances. And if I'm a developer, I want to focus on business logic, not necessarily like the configuration of how to put together a pipeline. And that's where Gen AI is really helping a lot, right? It's where it's coming in and it's basically helping you create those different components of the pipeline. So I don't have to know like how to operate it. I just have to know what instructions or where I want to get to, the results I want to see from it. And that's where we find that customers are very excited about things like that, because they can onboard new developers, they can onboard new staff, things like that, and get them productive much quicker than they could in the past because a lot of the heavy lifting is kind of like already done for you. I think of it as almost like it's almost like an evolution of what people would have done in the past with like blueprints and templates, where AI is kind of like filling that role, where blueprints and templates are they're very canned. So you get like a template that then you have to then alter and create and make your own, where AI is basically filling that role, where you're getting something bespoke and very customized right from the beginning, without having to go through that step of learning the template, creating the template, things like that.
Right. James, those were some awesome insights into Gen AI, and it was so good to hear from you on what you're seeing and hearing from customers every day.
Yeah, and thank you, Paige, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool to be able to be here today at Amazon Studios to have this conversation. And I'm really looking forward to our partnership this year.
Myself as well.
And thank you for joining.